Burrow airs it out. Chase. Hello. Touchdown.
And I got a voice inside that needs to be fed.
Are two of the best historically, just not thus far. Against these receivers.
Making the judgments again, and there is Smith roaming free, breaks a tackle. Ohio State strikes quickly.
Good afternoon, everybody, and happy 4th of July Eve. This will be airing on 4th of July Day, but big time episode tonight. I've got one of my personal friends, definitely family, a brother in arms. I've got Micheal on today. We're going to talk a little sports. We're going to talk a little business, a little motivation, and what this holiday means to us, and so much more. So it's going to be a little step away from our usual, pounded Ohio sports, pound at the Reds, pound at the Browns, pound at the MAC conference that we have so many teams in here in the great state of Ohio. We're going to peel off. Today's going to be a little bit more of a personal episode. It's going to be a fun episode. And Micheal, welcome to the show. Tell our viewers a little bit about yourself, our time in service, how we met a little bit. Me being a troublemaker, you can wink to that. But other than that, welcome to Ohio Sports Talk, brother. I'm happy to have you on.
Dude, I'm glad to be here. Nothing gets me fired up like a good sports highlights. Kind of it definitely gets me like right in the mood to just dive into topics of stuff that I'm the most passionate about. And I will say for the record, just to put it known, I do have I run my own podcast as well. It's related to the trucking industry, the trucking world, called the Lombard Trucking Show. And I myself on the show and on Twitter, I'm a self-proclaimed big time Midwest respecter. So especially when I was trucking, I spent a good majority of my time in the Midwest because that's where everything's made. For the most part, that's where a lot of the food comes from. There's so much manufacturing and distribution that comes out of the Midwest. And so that's where all the money was. So I found myself all scattered throughout the Midwest a lot, especially in Ohio. I've picked up some hay balers, some farm equipment in Ohio. And so that's where the money is. But on top of it, that's where some of the best people are. Some real salt of the earth. I think America's best truly come from that stretch of property we call the Midwest. So I'm stoked to be here. And a little bit about me. I'll try to condense it because I feel, because if you look at photos of me, one of these days, there's going to be a conspiracy on whether or not I have some body doubles, because if you look at pictures of me from high school to the Marines, to directly after the Marines in college, to even after college and move into Texas. And then even my time as a truck driver. And then currently there's there's multiple people who say that, that's just not you. But to kind of sum it up, as much of a Midwest respecter as I am, I'm not from the Midwest, but I'm originally from Connecticut. I went to high school in Waterbury. I went to Holy Cross High School, home of the Crusaders, where I was a swimmer for all 4 years. I did play football my freshman year, but I opted to I figured I had better chances of talking to women by doing student theater. Nonetheless, you see, when you play football in high school, you're a little fish in a big pond. It's a big football team, but when you're a straight guy doing student theater, you're kind of a commodity in the theater world. So that's just a little joke to be funny. But high school was great. I was captain of my swim team. I joined the Marine Corps right out of high school. I always tell people the reason why I joined the Marines. And again, I had went to MEPS in 2007. I was in my senior year of high school, and the reason why I joined the Marines had everything to do with, I didn't want to go to college. I remember, my senior year, I wrote a 10-page poli-sci paper, and this is 2007 Catholic high school. I wrote that paper with a pen. This wasn't, typed or anything like that. I had to write it out. And I was like, I have to go and do this again next year. I was like, this is what life is all about. And I grew up And so kind of like a little bit about how I grew up. I grew up in a blue collar household. My father, he owns a small parts manufacturer in Connecticut, and Connecticut by any stretch of the means is very rust belty in its own way. Waterbury's the brass city, a lot of old manufacturing. And actually, fun fact for all the Ohio listeners is there's a lot in Ohio that looks very similar to Connecticut because a large part of northern Ohio used to be owned by Connecticut, which is a little fun fact for Independence Day. And actually in 1776, basically when the Declaration was signed, that region, that northern Ohio region, which was part of the Connecticut colony, was ended up being ceded back. And Connecticut didn't own it anymore, so to speak. That had to do with you'd have to fact check it fully, but I know that northern part, like right on the Great Lakes and that stretch, you can look at an old map. And so there's a lot of similarities between the Midwest and Connecticut. But I grew up with my father and my family, and my father's father, my grandfather, they owned a company called Lombard Brothers Incorporated, or Lombard Trucking. This is a really cool story. This is a motor carrier that started with 8 horses and two wagons that became a trucking company in the earliest days of trucking in 1923. And they were a motor carrier all the way up until 1984. And, my grandfather, his primary job, so my grandfather was a part owner of Lombard Trucking, and his primary job at Lombard was driver. He drove for over 30 years. Now, my family sold the business in 84 due to a piece of legislation that was signed by Jimmy Carter called the Motor Carrier Act of 1980, also known as deregulation. And so deregulation essentially, it kind of, my family's company was a Teamster affiliate. And so it did it was kind of a gut check to the unions as it deregulated freight rates and kind of opened the floodgates for a lot of new competition into the industry. And again, we don't need to go down that road. You can listen to my podcast if you want to talk about the Motor Carrier Act. But I grew up with my grandfather. And so my grandfather, historic truck driver from this company. My dad, does centerless grinding. And so that's what I grew up with. And so the idea of going to college wasn't it for me. And we grew up in the era where it was college. Like this is the only way to get jobs, it's the only way to get ahead. It's important to talk about this because college isn't the only way, but especially nowadays with trades and everything. But I knew that the only honorable thing I could do in the eyes of my parents and society that wasn't going to college was joining the military. And there was no better branch to join than the Marines. And I had a friend who graduated a year before. Like if I was going to go, I might as well go for what was marketed, and which is truly the best. And I was one of the things I wrestle with in life, and what I think set me up for a lot of downturn in a lot of my 20s, is wrestling with the idea of, should I have stayed in? Should I have made a career out of it? Especially my recent, I guess physical accolades in the sports I continue to participate in, and kind of seeing how far I've been able to go. And I kind of kicked myself in the pants over it for, nearly 10 years. And I still kind of wrestle with the idea of what a career would have been like. And, I do consider the 4 years in the Marines some of the best in my life, some of the hardest stuff, obviously. And that's what's great about doing hard things, is the harder things we do, or the things that we do that are so hard, always end up being the most rewarding. And I think that's always something to remember for anybody who's going through challenges. But it was fun. Yeah, I know. I remember hanging out with you, busting some balls in formation quite often. Those are the days I miss. Being able to was that level of freedom, which was how we all communicated to each other, and busting each other's balls and screwing around and going to Myrtle Beach on weekends. But
that's been my biggest adjustment back, even today. The communication and language cannot be the same. I'll find myself slipping into Marine mode sometimes, and I gotta hit the back of the head every now and then, especially when I'm coaching.
It's a new muscle, and I learned it kind of somewhat the hard way. I got out. I took my undergrad at a school called the University of New Haven, and which it's a D2 school. They're actually about to go D1 in their sports program. So their football team is going to go to Division I. They were in the Northeast Conference, the NEC, and I don't know what conference they're going to now. I played club lacrosse at my undergrad. which was pretty serious. So, and the thing is with lacrosse, and there's a lot of great lacrosse players out of the Midwest and great programs that are coming out now. Lacrosse in college, a lot of it is club, not a lot's varsity because of Title IX. And so, like, even Alabama, like the SEC, like most of the SEC teams are all club. Like they all play under the MCLA, which is the Men's Collegiate Lacrosse Association. And so we were D2 of the MCLA. And it's really everybody. Like really, the only varsity teams are kind of the ones you know about, and a lot of them are in the Ivy. You do have Maryland, but it's mainly like Yale, Dartmouth, Cornell, and then you also have your Duke, UNC.
Yeah,
like
those ACs, what used to be the ACC. Remember
exactly. Like those are the only ones that are varsity, and they're very good. But there's people who play at Alabama and Florida and UConn and other schools, like whether it's SEC or Big Ten. Like there's club programs where those people probably could play in the NCAA, but that's just how much the sport's grown. That's what's different about it. And so playing lacrosse, it did keep me locked in. I yo-yoed a lot in college when it came to like my weight and fitness. Again, coming out of the Marines, I had to learn that new muscle. I joined a fraternity. I learned this new muscle of, hey man, you can't use that language a lot, like how you speak, how you talk online. You should, hey, we like you, like we want you to be here, but hey, this isn't the Marines anymore. So it was a new muscle that I had to learn. But and I carried every habit from the Marines, every bad habit from the Marines, so to speak, into college. Like I continued to smoke cigarettes. I drank as if I was 21. I ate kind of whatever I wanted. And so where I kind of kept myself in a decent zone in college, once I graduated in 2016, it totally kind of fell off. And I know this is kind of a long story of explaining who I am, but
no, you're good, brother.
Yeah, it's important to drive home. I think sharing this story and testimony, I like to real, raw, and relatable are the 3 R's. And I think that always makes for good content for people to relate to, because in 2016 completely just fell off the wagon. Like, I will say this, the number one reason, like the big part of the reason why I got out of the Marines was because all the homies were getting out. All the guys got out. I didn't, it looked like the people who stayed in because they had nothing else for them, or they had happened to have kids and didn't want to go without health care. And so I thought I could do anything I wanted, even though I had no clue what I wanted to do. But I was also dating somebody at the time who is now my wife. And I think if I stayed in, I'm not sure if she would have went for it. I don't think she would have been ready at that point to leave Connecticut. And we definitely both didn't want to do long distance anymore. So and I think that's always what I fall back on when I'm like, oh, should I have stayed in? I could be this rank by now. I could be doing this. I could have went to MARSOC. I could have tried all this stuff out. But I fall back on, I'm with my number one. That's always the most important thing. But going back to 2016, like completely fell off. I struggled. I went on this road trip across the country. I linked up with a lot of old friends from our unit during it. And I was, it was a real kind of like coming to adulthood moment. I was like, man, I don't know what I'm going to do. But I got back, and a lacrosse teammate ended up helping me out with getting me a job I worked at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, which is sales and customer service and their management training program. And it was, it is like a pretty, it's tough. It's definitely not for everybody. I think if I went back to that job now, I'd be resilient at it. But, but working at that job, half your customers just got into a car accident. The other half are drug dealers. And it's like, it's hard to in other customer service, like flight attendants, flight attendants have a high and a low. Like you're going to deal with those bad travelers, but the really good ones who are going to think you take you up. At Enterprise, it's just, like I said, these people either just got their car totaled, or it's an accident, or you're dealing with or you're dealing with literally drug dealers, especially depending on where you live. So it was a tough job. I don't need to go too far into it. It's definitely not what I wanted to. It's like, I didn't see my career that way. And I was again, there was one moment at that job though, where I was definitely around my heaviest. I was 27 years old, close to 280 pounds. And I remember we just got chewed out by our area manager. I remember walking back to my, my Jeep at the time. And I was like, is this really the rest of my life? And that's when I really had this huge spiraling moment. And I continued to spiral, from there. like mentally, I continued to spiral. Like I didn't do anything. I never got any DUIs or anything like that. I actually quit smoking cigarettes on August 1st, 2016. So I was treading water is the best way to describe how I was, but I was not happy mentally. Like on paper, if you looked at me from the outside, you zoom out at 30,000 feet, I'm a regular guy. Like everything's, I wasn't in any crazy debt. I'm not a gambler. I'm not I'm not drinking and driving or do anything outlandish. There's nothing horrible that stretch, but inside my own mind, I was struggling with lack of purpose. And then things started to change. And this is what I've kind of reflected on. I end up getting a job at a warehouse. So I go into something that's more my psyche, back to blue collar, where I can talk like I was in the Marines again. There was a form of that. Working in a warehouse, I worked, doing operations, drove a forklift a lot. I talked to truck drivers a lot. And in the midst of working at that warehouse, we lost a good friend of ours, a gentleman we went to Afghanistan with, whose name is Matt Brown. This is in November of 2018. That right there, I was probably at my lowest point, like mentally, still lost, because at the time I was 28. So I'm on the doorstep of 30. It's just like, am I going to be in this warehouse for the rest of my life? Like, what does the next step look like? Where am I headed? I think I got turned down for like a warehouse manager job or something to somebody who had more experience, and by all means, that guy deserved it. But either way, we lost Matt Brown. And at that point, that's when I looked myself in the mirror and had a really big internal conversation. I actually just spoke about this on a podcast. And Matt Brown, if you know him, he was a corn-fed Alabama guy, jacked, very, very bodybuilder type. And I remember thinking, like, what would Matt Brown want me to do? Like, if he was still here, what would he want me to do? Would he want me to continue living like this, living for the weekend, drinking 3 days a week, XYZ, like not doing what I want to do? What would he want me to do? And that's what got me back in the gym. Like I started, and I joined a CrossFit gym, and the only reason I did it is because it was on the way home from the warehouse. And so for anybody who's starting a fitness journey, it's got to fit. It's one, got to fit your lifestyle, and two, it has to actually fit. Like it has to fit within your commute and where you're going to and from. You could have the best gym in the world, but if it's 25 minutes out of your way, you're not going to go. You're not going to go.
I agree with that. And, I go to a place that's open 24/7 because I go at like 4 a.m. because that is the only time slot in my day. If I'm not out the door by 4:30, I'm not going to do it. And I'll make every mental excuse not to do it, but I made sure it was closer. It's open. It's not open at 7 and I got to rush in there and then rush into work. No, I go in there super early. I get home, I eat. Now I got time for the rest of the crap that I got to do for the day. But, that's definitely placement. And like you said, where it fits in your life is big, because I had other memberships where I was just paying to say I was there. Yeah, I got a membership there. When was the last time I was there? Man, I don't fucking know.
Yeah,
we can curse on this podcast too. We're a little free, so
you got to take the path of least resistance. So I was, like I said, I was close to, there's days I was I just remember the last time I looked at the scale, it did say 278, which means I was probably floating between 278, 285, because like your weight will fluctuate throughout the week depending on what you eat. And and when you're at that point in mind, mentally, physically, you have to the barrier to entry needs to be low, and the path needs to have the least resistance. When it comes to diet, fitness, lifestyle, anything that is trying to go, like, this is why, and because I work as a coach now, I'm a nutrition coach as well as a fitness coach. I steer and I work with drivers to help, truck drivers, keep them healthy. I always steer clear of any sort of restrictive dieting and any sort of crazy kind of like programs, routines that are sort of viral because of the success rate. And what you need to be doing when you start a fitness journey is start building sustainable habits you're going to carry for the rest of your life. And so I started with one, and that was getting back to the gym. I didn't change anything at all. I didn't change the diet or anything, but I locked into that habit. And while I was going to that gym, the coach there, the owner of this CrossFit gym, he built a relationship with me. He started having conversations with me about food, about what I was doing outside of the gym. And so after a couple of months of going there, I started grocery shopping more. So this is habit stacking. So I started habit stacking. Now from there, like as I started to get in better shape in 2019, my wife and I, we got married. We made, and I'm going to try to cut the short so we could dive into other topics.
You're good, brother.
We make the decision. I turned down a promotion. So I was offered a promotion, and me turning down that promotion was the best decision I ever made, because I negotiated the salary. It didn't go my way. And something I don't think people get when it comes to veterans, and this is a statistic I looked up, when it comes to demographics who get paid less in the workforce, we see a lot about how kind of women are paid a little bit less than men in the same roles. And what that has a lot to do with is actually not so much because it's man versus woman. It has to do with negotiation. So like when women are going for the same jobs as men, women are not negotiating as much for that salary. And that's because I've read articles on this, and it's the same thing and veterans actually suffer from the same thing. Veterans, a lot of times, especially military veterans, whether they've been in for 4 years or 20, aren't primed to negotiate their salary unless somebody tells. I know this now, and I had to learn this, but veterans don't negotiate salary because you're given promotions in the military based off of merit and time and service. Similar to a union, so to speak, like kind of like how unions promote. Like you've been at like your first couple promotions, like you pick up PFC and Lance Corporal strictly off of time, like your time and service. And then when it comes to your NCO ranks, you need to do a few extra continuing education through the MCIs, but it's also, you need a little bit more time to get there. And so on. So and then that pay, you don't negotiate your pay in the Marines. You get an E5 makes this, you make what an E5 makes. That's it. And so veterans do the same thing. Like they're not going to say, I deserve this. Veterans are in the mindset of kind of, if it's given to you, you take it. And so to speak. And if it was 2017 and I was offered that promotion, I would have taken it because I would have seen it as, oh, I don't know the next time this is going to happen. It's being given to me. I must have earned this. I should take it and then continue to work harder to get more. And where there's honor and nobility in that, that's just not how the workforce works. That's not how, and granted, it wasn't quote unquote corporate America, but it is, because I was working for a large distributor. And so you have to negotiate. I negotiated. It didn't go my way. And I'm glad it didn't, because from there we started making moves. I said, I had been with so many truck drivers for a while. I've called myself Lombard Trucking after my family's company on the internet for so long, where I was like, that's it. I'm moving to Texas. I'm going to get my CDL. And my fitness journey continued with me over the road. That's where I fell in love with running. So everything I did, whenever I wasn't driving, I was running. I was cooking my own food in an air fryer. I was counting my macros.
You didn't fall in love with running on our constant PFT testing?
Exactly. That's what's crazy is I hated running because of the Marine Corps, and I had to renegotiate. I give credit to David Goggins' first book, Can't Hurt Me, to, the book is basically removes any idea of excuses out of your mind. And, it's running focused, because Goggins is an ultra marathoner. And so and he brings that up, and it's like, okay, this seems to be the hardest thing. And reading that book was like, I not only just need to be healthy, I should be an outlier. And so, I spent 3 years over the road, and during those 3 years, I trained and I ran in 5 marathons. The reason why I came off the road, I was, it's been a tough freight market. I was backed into at a truck stop in Iowa. I lost a bunch of money. I went back out. I was kind of playing catch up. The market still wasn't that good. I was sitting, waiting for freight. I came to I was talking, I'm 30 at the time, I'm 33 at the time. I've got, a wife at home. I'm in this truck, and I've started a business because she's kind of the breadwinner. So I had the opportunity. I go to the VA for healthcare. I had low fixed costs to go into this. But at the end of the day, I didn't get into business to go bankrupt. I got into to potentially grow. And kind of talking with my business partner, the only trajectory I could have had was hopefully break even a year from the time I got off the road, or I could break even now. Like there was no other path to take, because it would have been continuing to go. It would have been surviving. It would have been saving up for the next breakdown, the next maintenance. Right. And it's just, from a financial terms, is okay, how about I pivot reset. I can come back to this later if it works out, but God kind of laid out a path for me and I took it. I was offered a job while I was still driving to work as a driver recruiter. I was also offered a job to coach at a gym because while I was over the road getting healthy, running marathons, I got my certification through the American Council on Exercise to be a fitness coach. And so I was offered a coaching job and a driver recruiting job. So I had an opportunity to get me off the road. And I full well was just like, okay, I'm going to ride this out and then we'll see about getting back in the truck and figuring it out. But what ended up happening was I worked for, a couple months and then I'm promoted to be the head coach of these two studios. But all of 2024, I worked full-time in the fitness industry, continued learning, but I kept my finger on the pulse of the industry. I went to events. I was invited to speak at events because I had the podcast. I made a bunch of content, fitness content. Awesome. And doing all that is what got me my current job, which is working for Truck Parking Club, which is the best way to describe it. We are the Airbnb of truck parking. For those who don't know, truck parking is a nationwide issue in all 50 states. There's one safe parking spot for every 11 trucks. And so we provide instantly reservable truck parking for truck drivers by monetizing existing real estate for current property owners. But I know that was a lot. That's a little bit about me in a short amount of time. That sums it up, and we can still keep rolling. We could dive into some of the other topics afoot to pull it apart.
Oh, absolutely. That I didn't get into fitness as much as you did. I got out and you want to talk about lows. I became a restaurant manager after the Marine Corps for a little bit, and then I got wild and became a state trooper for the state of Ohio. I graduated that class 162. So I got my fitness back together. I was feeling good, felt the camaraderie again. Kind of that's what I was really chasing. It wasn't necessarily the job. It was the structure of the job is very similar to what we had lived in the Corps. So, but I'd gotten sick. I had gotten down on myself. Cancer's a bitch. Waited around, loafed around, definitely got on my Wallard, didn't make the greatest decisions. I was sitting there, divorced, a little bit down, not really doing anything, and just kind of got up, back off the horse and, reinvented myself, got into high school coaching, got into middle school coaching, found a healthy relationship. I refound you online. So, seeing his motivational stuff, watching you run your marathons and, finish, you got the cut off sleeves and everything else like that. So I definitely wanted to reconnect. I'm like, damn, that, he motivated me back in the day, but from afar, definitely, when I got rid of cancer the second time, I was like, these videos, man, you got me hooked on something here. And, I too went on a little journey, reconnected with a few of our Marines. I don't know if you remember Sergeant Ursery. We got big into sports writing and, got together with some old friends that wanted to come back around. When you get off your ass and when you can help yourself, you can help others, and that gravitates people back. And, now we got Ohio Sports Talk, and I'm a lot happier, and, I'm locked in. So, I'm thrilled that, I reached out to you. It was unconventional. I couldn't find the right number, so I just called the dispatch center, and they forwarded me to you. And I was like, man, I got to get a hold of him. I tried Facebook for a couple months, but that's more of a business line for you. So
yeah, Facebook. I bet I should check my Facebook DMs because there's probably a whole lot of responses in there. I should check, which is my bad on that. But I hate to hear that you had to go through that stuff. And what's crazy is, what's crazy about it is, have I suffered some, I've definitely suffered some loss, but since 2012, several friends from our unit. But a lot of my problems were internal, how I was feeling, who I was, why I was out of shape was internal. And so sometimes I have a little bit of imposter syndrome on it because I didn't, suffer from a horrible disease. I wasn't suffering from this. I was suffering from my own inactions. And I think but it also leads me to, you got to run your own race. And because what's inspired me has really been, give me 1 second. I got to close this door.
Oh, you're good, brother.
What's kind of inspired me has been, like, if you notice in my videos, a lot of it's focused on history and also people's history. And I mentioned real, raw, and relatable earlier. And so, like, losing Matt Brown and having that conversation of what would he want me to do, it started to move me forward. But in the same way, what keeps me going, a lot of things, is as I've continued to level up in my own fitness and in my own sport. And this is why sports are important. And this is why I think this show, and I'm glad we're doing this episode, is important, because people need to realize, like, there's such a, like, when it comes to fitness and sports, especially our own fitness and some sports we own play, and that could be men's league hockey, that could be, a beer league in baseball, whatever it might be. It's important to never stop competing because of what it does for your mental health. And, from getting into this sport, especially triathlon and running and in marathon running, I've met people who are cancer survivors, gone through divorce. I'm friends with this great guy. His name's Nick Klingensmith. He's a motivational speaker. He's written 2 books. He's a sales, monster. He's, spent 20 years in freight brokerage. The guy's had cancer 4 times, been diagnosed with cancer 4 times, type 1 diabetic. He's got herniated discs. He lost his sister, due to suicide. He's been sober now he'll be 11 years sober this month. And he's in all this crazy stuff, but he's emerged. He's done over 100 Spartan races. He's ran Boston Marathon. He's done these ultra endurance events, and that's what carried him out. That's what's carried his sobriety and carried all this stuff. And that's why I think it's always important. That's why it's important to do the sports talk. It's important to do, and then at the same time, never stop competing for yourself. And
Yes.
and I could tell you one-on-one, if you stay locked in, like, if you like, because I don't know life now not being locked in. Like, I haven't gone, like, I don't even know how long I've gone now without a race on my calendar. And it's like, I don't know if it's like by design. I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing, but, like, I don't know a life without it, because it keeps me, again, and doing all this has got me working for a company that's one of the fastest growing freight tech companies in the entire industry. That's actually solving a problem. Like, I am not at my current job and current role. And granted, I'm not a multimillionaire at this place, but I wake up every day with a sense of purpose. I do what I do. I talk to who I want to talk. I'm inspired. I don't get Sunday scaries. I'm inspired every day I go to work. And I don't get to this job if it wasn't from spending years of locking in and doing very uncomfortable things, breaking old habits, building new ones that get me into it. And I've never found somebody who got into running. I've never found somebody who got into running or triathlon or anything fitness related, high rocks, CrossFit, whatever it is. I've never been anybody who got into it and then their life turned into absolute garbage. I'm sure they exist,
Right.
but in my own life, I never met somebody who became a marathoner and then also, went down, like, their life spiraled downhill. It's normally in reverse. I know this guy, Mitch Ammons. He's an incredible athlete. He's the fastest man in Austin. He won the Austin half marathon this year in February. This man was addicted to heroin. This man, 10 years ago, this guy couldn't wake up without pills, couldn't wake up without heroin, had been in and out of rehab 3 times. And now he ran the fastest half marathon in Austin this year. The guy ran it in like 1:07 or something, an hour and 7 minutes. Insane, stupid, dummy good. And so it's like, where, and he also works as a realtor. He's got sponsorships through supplement companies. He goes to all these races for free. He does all these things, and anybody has the potential to do that.
Oh, 100%. And, and I agree with you there that you've kind of looped a couple times that, the needing to not stop competing, whether you're competing for yourself to make yourself better, whether it's natural competition, whether it's the old man's drinking league or the old man's basketball league, you go out there and, because I feel that especially for veterans. And, I'm glad you said purpose, because that's something before my actual health issues. That's something when you go from, handling, $200,000, XM bombs in Afghanistan for the 982s to taking somebody's order at Five Guys, you feel like, holy fuck, they ruined my purpose. So definitely, refining your purpose and locking in is such a huge thing on that. And I can attest to that. Healthy or non-healthy, when you're not locked in, that's, in my opinion, that's when things just start to slide. You start to, okay, I'll put that off. I'll do that later. And it starts something small, then it snowballs into finances, then it snowballs into goals, and then it snowballs into, work related. And
it turns into surviving. And Nick Klingensmith says this: correct. We weren't put here to survive. We were put here to thrive in every stretch of the means. And when that purpose, I've talked about this a lot. I've beat this drum for a while that, like, I am a firm believer. Now, are there costs to of a country being at war for over 20 years mentally, and kind of the things that, the men and women have seen overseas that can cause post-traumatic stress? Yes, of course. And PTSD is definitely real. I'll never deny that any stretch of the means, but I feel as though, because we have a veteran mental health crisis in this country, and a lot of it is some stemmed from PTSD, but it's not carte blanche. You can't blanket, I think, veterans' mental health issues to just the 20 years of war that the country has been in. A lot of it has to do with, and I wrote a Substack on this, I think a lot of it has to do with this lack of purpose that veterans face. Whereas veterans from World War II who, and I don't want to compare like which was worse, seeing, obviously, in the Middle East, we had, there's things like children were used as human shields in the Middle East. And I know that, in World War II, the Japanese were kind of doing the same thing. I'm not trying to compare which one was worse and combat related. I think all war is bad. But those veterans who came back from World War II stepped into the world's greatest economy. They built the world's greatest economy. They caused the baby boom. Like, they came back and they had every opportunity to kind of start business and get into stuff. And this is pre-technology. So they were opening up body shops, but also, they were becoming, if you watch Band of Brothers, some of these guys became school teachers and worked for the post office and drove a taxi cab, and they were happy and content. And I think that maybe those jobs were probably better back then than today, because the market has done what it's done. But they came back with a sense of purpose because community was also stronger. We've lost those two things. So purpose and community kind of go hand in hand. Community is everything. It's how we've survived as a species. If you were kicked out of the tribe, if you deserted the tribe 10,000 years ago, you starved. That's how we survived droughts, famines, everything. So community is like how we've evolved as a species. Like, we're tribe animals, no matter how we chop it up. And then that, having that purpose, it's tough. If you got out of the Marines anytime between 2012 and now, you're in the technology age, you're in the information age, and the idea of starting businesses or finding your purpose is very hard. And it's even harder when you're kind of going back out into the world where there is no community behind it. Like, our communities now in cities and towns is not what it was in the 40s and 50s. Like, communities are totally different, where everybody is spread out kind of in their communities. We see it all the time, and we see HOA drama on Facebook pages. Like, that's community. It's like limited to these HOA dramas, and finding that purpose is hard, and there's a road to get there. And I didn't find that purpose until the midst of me being over the road as a trucker, where I realized where I just found out these health problems in the industry. This is a job, trucking is a job that removes 16 years off of one's life. The rates of chronic disease are double that versus the working class population. It's absolutely horrible. And so what that tells me is that truckers being unhealthy isn't just an individual issue. You can't just tell truckers, oh, follow Lombard Trucking on Instagram, do what he did. No, going right back to the beginning of this podcast, people can't just follow me on Instagram and just copy paste. You can't do that, because everybody is different. You have to run your own race. These people need to be led. They need to start off with building sustainable lifestyle habits, and it needs to happen progressively over time and build. And the way to do so, this isn't an individual why truckers are suffering from their health. This is systemic. This is the environment. And so my purpose has everything to do with changing that environment around health and fitness in the trucking industry. And that's, it's one of the biggest reasons why I got hired at my current job. And my current job has nothing to do, well, it's related to parking, because having safe parking gives you the opportunity to exercise or move, and having the right resources available for you to use it, or to be able to kind of cook your own food or have better food options. it does play into it, but it's definitely how I got into my current role. And so, and that's the thing, like you said, like because when it comes to that, finding that purpose, it's harder for a veteran than any other job out there. You could work for a company for 15 years, then all of a sudden start a new job. You'll find your groove. But for a veteran, your purpose is so deep rooted in camaraderie. You wear the country's greatest uniform. You have a title, like as Marine, like your title, your rank, all that stuff. When it gets into your kind of DNA, you can't just shed that out of your DNA. And then when all of a sudden, like I said, you said at Five Guys, like I felt that same way in Enterprise. I was out there in a shirt and tie, like vacuuming out a car for somebody who was just like chewing me out. What purpose was there in that, as I was like splitting my like suit trousers because I was freaking overweight and I'm sweating, I'm wearing this tie and I'm cleaning this rental car for this person who is going to smoke weed in it. And then when they come back, I've got to give that car to a woman who just got into a car accident. She's holding her baby. And the only car I give her is one that reeks of weed. And it's like, what life purpose is that compared to, and college was like a Band-Aid. The lacrosse, like playing lacrosse, again, is fun. Yeah. It's sports. That was a Band-Aid. Being in the fraternity, we had fundraisers. We were helping out nonprofits. Like we had this brother. And so those were like Band-Aids. And then once those Band-Aids got ripped off and I was in the real world, and it's just like that purpose just went away. But then when I got in that truck, I had a purpose. This is peak COVID. I was hauling freight when people needed supplies the most. I felt as though I was serving my country again. And so so I was proud to be a truck driver. I was honoring my family's legacy. And then the health stuff started taking, this health stuff is a problem. I need to get involved in this. And I start making the podcast. I start making content. It starts opening up doors. And it's been incredible. And since I've gotten off the road to really channel this into sports is, okay, how can I actually do that? How can I get this word out? How can I do this mission? And sports are one of the biggest ones. I mean, you have athletes on your show all the time. You're a coach yourself. Like, sports is such an outlet for how you can get these missions out there. We see it, the NFL players, they've kind of got things that are important to them on their cleats and all this stuff they want to bring awareness to. And I said, I'm going to double down. I grew up a swimmer. I don't know much about cycling, but I'm going to dial into triathlon. And so I went from 0 triathlons to Ironman in 6 months. I had done marathons, but I'm not really that good on a bike. And then I went back to back in Ironman 6 months after my first one. And it's like, and now it's just in my veins. And it's like, I'm going to try to compete at the highest levels I can in this sport. And if I can inch my way to the top of my age group and kind of build clout off that, I can become the person, the spokesperson who's speaking on this issue to supplement companies, to the truck stops, to the travel centers, to people from in and outside of the industry saying, hey, we have this problem. It's killing people. It is ruining their quality of life. We need to change it. I lived it. I know it's possible. Hey, also, I'm doing more than what you currently do because I'm an Ironman all-world athlete and you are not. So I have credibility to where you can listen to me because I kind of know what I'm doing in the fitness space. So I'm trying to build, so where I've built the professional resume of kind of being in the logistics space since 2017. So I have several years in the logistics space of being in the warehouse as a truck driver. I know a lot of brokers. Now on the fitness side, I'm growing my fitness resume. I'm trying to pack that so that way I can put them all together and try to change the world.
One step at a time. And like I said, you're killing it. Definitely caught my eye. And, you being where you're at right now, that's awesome to hear, man. And, I'm proud of you. This is awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate it. My goal is my overall goal though. I can't lie. I just need to make sure I can't collapse like the Cincinnati Reds would or anything like that.
There it is. No, you can't collapse going to Boston after you're on top of the world like the Cincinnati Reds do. But you might collapse with TJ Watt contract talks like your beloved Pittsburgh Steelers right now who are threatening a trade. But we're doing the same thing in Cincinnati with the Trey Hendrickson. So they both might be out of the AFC North. So we'll see. When football season comes back, I'll definitely, you being a Pittsburgh fan, I'd love to get your perspective back on especially during rivalry week. So
I'm going to make it a point this year to really pay attention because I've been so, especially last fall, I was every weekend I was on the bike or I was going on, long distance runs. So I would keep up with the Steelers a lot on Twitter. And again, somehow, some way, the Steelers squeaked into the playoffs last year, which was insane to see, especially after, it's a couple of years now losing a franchise quarterback. I had grown up. I mean, I've been to Heinz Field 7-8 times to games. I've seen the Steelers at a couple of away games. So it's like, and that's basically, I mean, I remember being in the Marines at MOS school watching, that Cardinals Super Bowl. And it's like, and basically so it feels like, Big Ben was really the QB, like for the bulk of my, adult life, like essentially because I didn't really start watching football until I was in the Marines. And then I really started getting into watching it in 2012 and beyond. I would watch the Super Bowl every year as a kid, but I spent so much time in the winter swimming that I didn't have time for it. And then since I've gotten into triathlon again, like once you dip your toe into the Ironman world, your free time is on the bike or you're doing runs or you're at the pool. So it's like I've been so locked into my own my own sport. And then and marathon running is no different. You've got it, you're spending some Sundays doing some long runs. And then the idea of, and I live in a great city, I live in Austin, and, this is a pretty active city, even that's why a lot of people, which I'm not a Longhorns guy anymore. Definitely lean towards the A&M side of things. They're more my vibe. They're more blue collar at that SEC style. Cause like, that's like Texas.
Horns down this year. We Ohio State opens against Texas week 1. So,
and what's crazy is, at Ohio State, if Ohio State loses that game, the city kind of gets the city gets really depressed. People are down. And Austin's not like that. If the Longhorns lose, Austin still it pops off, man. It is still like the happiest place you can ever be. Like it's not the same vibe. Are the Longhorns a cool program? Is Bevo great? Sure. But like, there's something about how like the SEC teams, like, A&M, like if A&M loses, the city is just kind of goes to sleep. And whereas like in Austin, it's like, oh, the Longhorns lost. Cool. Let's go to Dirty Six. Let's go here. Let's go to these places. And so like the vibe is totally like, you could tell like Austin isn't like a quote unquote, if a pro team was here, would people go? Sure. But it's like, I wouldn't call it a sports town. You know what I mean? Like it's not like, unlike if you go to Nebraska, if you're up in Lincoln on game day, it is red. Like it is red. The city is shut down, even to the point in which even truckers know. They're like, dude, don't drive through Lincoln on game day. Like don't, if it's a Saturday in the fall, like don't even bother driving through Lincoln. Like do something else, figure it out. Like even truckers know, like you don't go through Lincoln on game day. So it's but yeah, living in Austin, it's been pretty dope, especially staying locked in with fitness. But dude, I appreciate you having me on. This has been great. I love to
100%.
Love to share this. I know it kind of deviates from the football and regular talk, but not all of us are like, I know I'm not going to be a pro athlete. I'm not going to go in the NFL, but if it's one thing people should know and your listeners should know is like we may not have the opportunities to play pro ball or anything, but people can never stop competing. And, my full testimony, since 2018, I've lost 100 pounds. And again, and not only just the weight loss in itself is definitely an accolade and a story, but is that it doesn't have to stop there. Like if you truly want something, if you want to compete at a high level and do things very few people do and stand out, you can do it. I kind of, it's a little bit of ego talking, but there's nobody on the Cincinnati Bengals who's ever going to be with me at the starting line of an Ironman race. And those are kind of things you can wear, and that kind of, and yeah, that sounds like ego, but that's, whenever I have to talk to important people or do what I have to do, I carry that same level of confidence. And so, and everybody has that same potential.
No, I that's well said. I couldn't have said it better myself. We'll continue to drive that message home. Where can my viewers see it? You said we're on Twitter, X, or Instagram. Where's the best spot for them? We'll post it on our X site.
I'd say the most busy place I am is Instagram and Twitter. Like Twitter, I'm always yapping. Instagram, I post a lot of like my day to day, a lot of posts, a lot of reels, and then TikTok is probably number three. But TikTok's all just video. But Instagram, I'm talking a lot, I'm posting a lot. But yeah, people can find me anywhere, just at Lombard Trucking, which is like Lombardi. With that, my family actually cut off the vowel over 100 years ago, so it's like Lombardi, but minus the I. So it's just Lombard Trucking. And you can find me anywhere. I'm also on Instagram, Twitter, X, YouTube, on Facebook, Micheal Anthony Lombard, and then as well as I think I mentioned TikTok, and then the podcast show, the Lombard Trucking Show. And yeah, I'm an open book. So anybody out there who's, if you're in Central Texas or wherever you're at, or if you work in the freight industry or you're just looking to lock in, hit me up anytime, anywhere.
And finally, with it is 4th of July weekend. What's your favorite 4th of July moment? Whether it was as an adult or, growing up, what's your favorite Independence Day memory?
One of my favorite Independence Day memories was definitely a 4th of July party we went to in West Haven, Connecticut. West Haven's got some great fireworks. And, there's this core memory I have of us with our dog on the beach. And I was just, it was with my wife and a whole bunch of friends and, watching those fireworks. That's a standalone one. That definitely like sticks out. Pretty good one. Just classic kind of Americana, being at a cookout. But I mean, 4th of July is something I look forward to every year because it is it's birthday week. Like it is, and it's everybody's birthday. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from. I understand. There's people who get very up in arms about politics and all this sort of stuff, and people have got their opinions. They like the president, they don't like him. They didn't. Even last year they liked the last president, they didn't like this one. All this sort of stuff. All that's garbage when it comes to the 4th of July. When it comes to loving your country has nothing to do with loving your government.
Yes.
It has everything like what I love. The reason why I love this country so much has everything to do with the individuals of this country, the people in it who I get to experience this life with. And I just truly believe that you can't find, like, the community I'm with here in Austin, the running community, these people, all the truckers I'm friends with, that I just don't think, I think it's second to none. I don't know if that same mindset and that same vigor and tenacity that exists here amongst like my community, who I'm with, who I get to associate with, exists in any other country in the world. And I think it's because it's the United States. It has everything to do with the identity. And so it's birthday week. It's for everybody. And every 4th of July, it's the best time of the year. It's the best weather, no matter where you go. It's just a great time to reflect on having gratitude for where you do live. And that, you're not, if you're living in the United States right now, you are in a very, very small minority of people who are so blessed on this earth. There's a lot of people out there with a lot less, who are going through a lot worse. And do we have problems we can fix? Sure. But it's on us to change them. And it requires getting involved, and it requires locking in, finding a purpose, finding a mission, and taking some action to make those changes. But it's a day to stand proud, stand tall, and appreciate all the men and women who got to wear the home team jersey, who kind of fought to preserve this country. It's July 3rd at time of recording. When I think of the 4th of July, I think about the men we lost at places like Gettysburg, who were fighting to preserve a union that led to the emancipation and freedom of over 4 million Americans. Like, I think that gets missed, and it missed a lot. We hear about Gettysburg, the Civil War, this. Like, we have to realize that the people who were fighting at places like Gettysburg and Vicksburg, which was also going on at the same time, were preserving a union that stood on the business of emancipating and freeing 4 million people. And that's America. That's the United States that did that. That's our ancestors. That's people who lived in the same country as us, and it's good to honor and appreciate that.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself on that. Definitely, mine's a little different. We watched fireworks over in a place called West Carrollton, just outside of Dayton, Ohio, and you'd be able to go to the park, and me and my friends would be able to play a football game with the tennis court lights would light up the grass just enough to see everything. Then we'd play under under the fireworks and pretend we're champions of something. So that's always fun, and the swimming parties and stuff like that. Everybody getting together. Then my time in the Marine Corps would be second. Going to Myrtle Beach just with the boys. On our 72-hour pass that would go by so fast, and we're everybody carrying each other back to the rooms after the festivities. Will always go down as my top favorites. But we big weekend. We'll post your link out on my Twitter page, Ohio Sports Talk. We'll give you a copy of this as well if you'd like to put it out there. We always appreciate the extra media coverage. I know you got stuff to do. You are a busy man this weekend. I hope you enjoy it with your family. Thank you for reconnecting with me. It meant the world. These aren't just words that I say. I take it to the bank, Michael. It's been a long time. I'm so happy you're on here. I can't wait to have you back on again, especially football season, or if you need a little person on your show every now and then. I'd love to stop by, bring a little Ohio mentality to your podcast. And
we're always gassing up the Midwest.
Gas of the Midwest. Maybe I'll get off my ass and I'll do a triathlon with you sooner than later before I get too old. But I would love to do that, especially for others that are going through the same stuff. So thank you again. This has been Ohio Sports Talk. I'm the coach Jordan. This is my good friend Michael. Used to be my corporal. So much more to me. Y'all have a great weekend. Out.